The alien ship entered orbit slowly, almost fearfully, as if the massive world below might notice them. Even from space, the visiting diplomats could not believe what they saw. The world was huge, far bigger than its original size. It stretched across space like an artificial giant, with glowing lines and mechanical rings circling around it. Ambassador Rel, leader of the alien delegation, pressed his face closer to the viewing glass. His eyes widened. "This world was never this large," he whispered. "How did humans expand it to this size?" No one answered. No one could. Their ship landed inside a silver docking bay that looked more like a megacity than a port. Towers rose high above them. Large pipes thrummed with energy. Even the air shimmered with warmth from reactors far beneath their feet. When the doors opened, a human stood waiting, calm, friendly, and smiling. Ambassador Lee, head engineer and official guide. "Welcome," Lee said. "I know you have many questions. I'll answer what I can." The aliens followed him into a long hallway with tall windows. Outside, they saw moving platforms carrying entire buildings, drones fixing huge beams, and workers climbing across impossible heights. Everything around them felt alive, busy, and enormous. Ambassador Rel finally spoke. "Human, we must ask, how did your people make our world this massive?" Lee paused. He looked out the window before answering. His eyes were tired, as if remembering something heavy. "That is a long story," he said softly, "and not all of it is comfortable to hear." Before Rel could respond, a deep rumble shook the hallway. The windows vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. The alien guards raised their weapons in alarm. Lee lifted a hand. "Don't panic. Just a tremor. This world is still adjusting to some internal stress." But the aliens exchanged worried looks. This world should not tremble. Not after humans rebuilt it. Lee continued walking. "Come, you must see the foundations first." They entered a massive elevator that descended deep underground. Blue lights flashed past as the lift dropped lower and lower. The air grew warmer. The sound of engines grew louder. Rel whispered to his assistant, "These humans, they act calm, but something feels wrong. Why tremors? Why the heat?" The assistant whispered back, "Maybe the humans rebuilt something unstable." The elevator stopped. The doors opened into an enormous chamber, filled with gravity stabilizers the size of ships. Each machine hummed softly. Alien engineers gasped. These devices were rare. One could power an entire fleet. Here, humans had hundreds. "This is only the upper level of the foundation," Lee said. "Your world needed a complete rebuild. We had to increase its size to support the new systems." Rel frowned. "Increase its size? By how much?" Lee stepped aside and pointed toward a massive hologram. It showed the alien planet as it used to be, small, fragile, damaged. Then the image expanded, layer by layer, until the new world appeared, huge and reinforced. Rel could barely breathe. "You increased our world by over 300%. Lee nodded. "We had no choice." Rel stared at him. "But how? No other species can change a world like this." Lee looked away. "Humans are different." Before Rel could press further, another tremor hit. This one was stronger. Lights flickered. A loud alarm echoed through the chamber. Lee suddenly moved fast. He touched the device on his wrist. "Control room report." A voice answered, tense and sharp. "Unstable readings from Sector 9. The sealed chamber is reacting again." Rel's eyes narrowed. "Sealed chamber? What are you hiding?" Lee did not answer. His face hardened. "Ambassador," Lee said, "for your safety, I need you to follow me immediately." "But we demand." "No," Lee interrupted firmly. "This is not a good place for questions." More alarms sounded. Red lights flashed. The machines around them began to shake. The aliens grew frightened. They had traveled across the galaxy to understand how humans expanded their world. And now it seemed something inside this giant world was waking or breaking or both. Lee led them back toward the elevator, but Rel stopped him. "Human," he said with a trembling voice, "what exactly did your species do to our world?" Lee finally turned, expression serious and heavy. "You want the truth?" he said. Then stay close. Because everything you think you know about humans is about to change. And with that, the group descended even deeper, toward the sealed chamber, toward the truth, and toward the secret that humans had kept hidden since the day they rebuilt the world. The elevator shook as it continued dropping deeper into planet-sized structure. The air grew hotter, and the lights flickered above the group. Ambassador Rel felt a cold worry spreading through his chest. He had expected answers. He had expected scientific explanations. Instead, he felt as if he was descending into a secret the humans wished no one to see. Ambassador Lee stood at the front, silent and tense. His usual calm smile was gone. The aliens whispered among themselves. "What is this sealed chamber?" one asked. "Why does it react?" said another. Rel finally raised his voice. "Human, we deserve the truth. This is our world, too." Leon looked back. "You will have it. But understand, humans did not become strong by living easy lives. Our history is full of danger." The elevator stopped with a loud clang. The doors opened to a dim hallway lit only by emergency red lights. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Strange, deep sounds echoed in the distance, like metal groaning under pressure. The alien stepped out carefully. Rel shivered. "This does not feel like a normal engineering zone." Lee nodded. "Because it isn't." They followed him down the hallway. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some steaming slightly. Panels flickered with warning symbols. The deeper they walked, the more obvious it became. This place was old, much older than the shiny upper layers of the world. "This section was part of your original planet," Lee explained. "We kept it intact to understand what destroyed your world centuries ago." Rel's eyes widened. "You mean the collapse?" Lee nodded again. "Yes, that disaster taught us many things. It also taught us what your world needed to survive." Another rumble shook the hallway. Dust fell from above. Some of the alien guards raised their weapons out of reflex. Lee raised his hand. "Put those down. Weapons are useless here." One guard asked nervously, "Against what?" Lee did not answer. They reached a thick metal door, covered in scratches and dents. Heavy locks sealed it. The air around it felt warmer, almost alive. Rel swallowed hard. "Is this the sealed chamber?" Lee touched a panel, and the locks began to release. "Yes," he said quietly. "This is the heart of your world, the place we rebuilt first, the place where everything changed." The door opened with a slow, painful creak. Inside, the chamber was massive, hundreds of meters wide, but it did not look like a normal machine room. It looked like a battlefield. Twisted beams, broken panels, burn marks, giant scars on the walls, as if something huge had torn through them. Rel whispered, "What happened here?" We stepped inside. His footsteps echoed through the ruined space. "This chamber used to hold your original planetary core stabilizer," he said. "But during the collapse, something went terribly wrong. The stabilizer overloaded. The entire world cracked apart. The aliens stared in horror. Our ancestors told stories." Rel said quietly, "But we never knew the details." Lee turned to him. "Humans did, because we studied everything. We wanted to make sure it never happened again." He pointed toward the center of the chamber. There, under faint emergency lighting, stood a tall structure, half broken, half rebuilt. Warm orange energy pulsed slowly inside it. Small sparks danced along its edges. "This is the rebuilt core," Lee said. "But this is not the part you should fear." Rel's heart pounded. "Then what should we fear?" Lee stared at the aliens. "The truth," he said. "The truth about how humans rebuilt your world." He gestured around the chamber. "You see destruction, but humans saw a challenge, a problem to solve. When this world collapsed, most species would have abandoned it, but we didn't." Rel frowned. "Why? Why risk so much for us?" Lee spoke slowly. "Because humans understand death worlds. We come from a planet full of dangers, storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, predators. Every generation learns how to survive impossible things." He walked along the shattered floor. "When we saw your world's remains, we felt something familiar, something we respected, a place that fought to live." Rel took a slow breath. For the first time, he realized something unsettling. Humans had not rebuilt the alien world out of kindness alone. They rebuilt it because they understood it. Its chaos, its danger, its stubborn attempt to exist. Another tremor shook the chamber. A loud crack echoed from the far wall. Sparks flew. Rel stepped back nervously. Human, what is causing these tremors? Lee finally answered. Something we hoped would stay asleep. Rel's skin turned cold. Something alive? Lee shook his head. Not exactly, but something powerful. Something created during the collapse. Humans discovered it when we rebuilt this chamber. He pointed to a sealed hatch on the far side of the room. Heavy chains wrapped around it. It pulsed faintly with green light. The collapse didn't only destroy your stabilizer, Lee said. It created something new, something unstable, something your people never knew about. Rel stared at the hatch as fear crawled up his spine. And that, Lee said, is the real reason your world is shaking. One of the aliens whispered, Are we in danger? Lee looked at them, serious and calm. Yes, all of us. Another long rumble rolled through the world, louder this time. The lights dimmed, then flickered back on. Lee took a deep breath. If we don't act soon, he said, this world will collapse again. Rel's voice shook, and humans rebuilt it once. Lee nodded, but we may not be able to do it twice. The chamber shook again, harder than before. The green glowing hatch rattled like something inside was pushing against it. The air became hotter. The sound deepened into a low, angry hum that echoed in everyone's bones. Ambassador Rel stepped back, terrified. Even the alien guards, trained for battle, could not hide their fear. Their hands shook as they held their weapons, though they already knew weapons would do nothing here. Ambassador Lee stayed calm, almost too calm. Rel finally spoke. Human, you must explain. What did you find during the collapse? What is behind that hatch? Lee walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, his boots crunching over broken metal pieces. When humans came to rebuild your world, he said, we expected damage. We expected danger. But we did not expect this. He pointed at the hatch wrapped in chains. That thing behind the door is not alive. It is not conscious. But it is something extremely powerful, an unstable sphere of compressed energy, a leftover piece from your old planet's core. When the stabilizer exploded, it created this. Rel stared at the hatch in disbelief. A core fragment? Yes, Lee said, but not a normal one. This fragment bends gravity. It distorts space. It breaks rules that should never be broken. Another deep thud came from the hatch, as if the fragment was trying to escape. Lee continued, humans studied it for years. We built the new world around it. We contained it with chains and graviton locks. But we knew one day it would wake. Rel's voice cracked. And that day is today? Lee nodded slowly. It seemed so. The aliens exchanged panic whispers. One said, if this fragment breaks free, everything will collapse again. Another added, we must flee, evacuate the world. But Lee raised his voice. Leaving won't help. This world is too large now. If the fragment explodes, the shock wave could wipe out entire star systems. The aliens fell silent. Rel felt the strength leave his legs. Human, how did you ever rebuild something so dangerous? Lee let out a tired breath. That is what I'm going to show you next. He signaled toward the far end of the chamber, where a metal walkway led to a giant lift. We are going to the mega engine room, Lee said. There you will learn how we expanded your world, and how we can stop it from collapsing again. The descent to the core. The group crossed a walkway. Every step clanged loudly, the sound vanishing into the vast darkness below. The tremors grew more frequent, each one sending dust falling from above. The lift was large enough for a small shuttle, with thick steel bars around it. When Lee activated it, it began its slow descent deeper into the world. Hot air rushed past them. The sound of machinery grew louder and louder. Rel looked over the railings. Below them, rivers of glowing blue energy flowed through giant channels. Massive metal pillars stretched into darkness like the bones of some metal titan. What is this place? Rel whispered. Lee looked proud, even under stress. This is the engine layer. Humans built it piece by piece. It supports the entire world, gravity, atmosphere, temperature, even orbital balance. The aliens stared in awe. They had never seen anything like it. Not even their most advanced species had built something this size. How many humans worked on this? One alien engineer asked. Lee answered without hesitation. Millions. Rel's eyes widened. Millions? Yes, Lee said softly. Your world collapsed. You lost almost everything. But humans do not walk away from a challenge. We came together, soldiers, engineers, scientists, miners. Everyone worked, day and night, for years. The lift continued downward. The energy channels grew brighter. Sparks flew between giant coils. The sound of engines throbbed like a heartbeat. Lee continued. We rebuilt the world layer by layer. We expanded it because the original size could not handle the pressure from the core fragment. The only way to save your world was to make it bigger. Rel understood now. So the world is massive because it had to be massive. Yes, Lee replied. The mega engine room. The lift finally stopped. The doors opened to a sight that left the aliens speechless. Before them was the mega engine room, one of the largest structures ever built by human hands. Giant turbines spun with glowing blue light. Graviton stabilizers, taller than buildings, rotated slowly. Rivers of pure energy flowed into huge reactors. The ground vibrated with power. It was like standing inside the heart of a star. One alien whispered, This should be impossible. Lee nodded. For most species, yes. But humans survive by doing things others think are impossible. Rel walked forward, drawn to the sight. You built all this just to contain the core fragment? Lee corrected him gently. No, we built all this to save your world, and to make sure your people had a future. The aliens looked at him differently now, not with fear, but with deep respect. But the moment of awe ended quickly. A loud alarm blared through the room. Red warning lights flashed. The floor trembled violently. A voice came over the speakers. Core fragment activity rising. Graviton locks failing. Lee's face hardened instantly. It's getting worse. Rel grabbed his arm. What do we do? Lee looked straight into his eyes. We go to the control center. We stabilize the core. Or this world dies. Rel swallowed. And if we fail? Lee stared toward the glowing turbines. Then humans will do what we always do, he said. We fight until the last possible second. The alarms kept ringing as Lee led the alien delegation deeper into the engine room. Red lights flashed across the metal walls. The floor shook every few seconds, each tremor stronger than the last. Steam hissed from broken pipes. Sparks rained down from overhead cables. Ambassador Rel struggled to stay calm, but his heart pounded with fear. Human, he said loudly over the alarms. You said, we are going to control center. How far is it? Lee pointed ahead. Not far, but getting there may be dangerous. Rel swallowed. More dangerous than collapsing world? Lee nodded. Yes, because the control center is where the truth is kept. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. Every time they thought they understood humans, something new made them question everything again. The Hall of Records. The group soon reached a thick metal door labeled Project Colossus, Restricted Access. Alien symbols had been added later. Translations, warnings, reminders that only humans were allowed inside. Rel frowned. Project Colossus? We have never heard this name. Lee placed his palm on the scanner. You weren't supposed to. The door slid open. Inside was a huge chamber filled with holograms, old machines, and long walls of data screens. It looked like a museum mixed with a war room. At the center stood a giant circular table showing a rotating 3D image of the alien world, before and after humans expanded it. Rel stepped inside slowly. This place, it feels ancient. Lee nodded. This is where it all began, where we planned the rebuild of your world, where humanity made its most dangerous decision. The aliens gathered around the circular table. The hologram shifted, showing the original alien planet cracking apart during collapse. Massive shock waves tore the crust. Oceans evaporated. Cities shattered. The core glowed too bright, then exploded like a dying star. Rel looked away, deeply shaken. "That was our home," he whispered. Lee placed a hand on the table. And this is what happened afterward. The hologram changed again. This time, it showed human ships, thousands of them, arriving at the ruins. Massive construction platforms unfolded like wings. Swarms of human workers landed on broken continents. Robots dug deep into the fractured core. The aliens stood in stunned silence. Rel whispered, "Why did you help us?" "We were not allies back then. We were strangers." Lee spoke softly. "Because humans do not turn away from suffering. We saw your world broken. We saw your people dying. And we decided we were not going to let an entire species vanish." The aliens said nothing. Their eyes were filled with gratitude and confusion. "But," Lee continued, "saving your world was not the hard part. Expanding it was." He pressed a button. The hologram zoomed in on the shattered core fragment. The same unstable object chain behind the shield hatched deep above. "This," Lee said, "is the reason the world had to grow larger. The fragment's energy was too great for a normal planet, so we built a bigger world around it." Rel nodded slowly. "We understand that now. But what is Project Colossus?" Lee turned to a different screen. "Project Colossus," he said, "was our plan to reshape your entire world, to rebuild it using technology humans had never tried before." Rel's eyes widened. "You tested new technology on our world?" "Yes." Lee did not hide it. "We had to. No existing design could handle the fragment." He walked to a panel. A glowing file appeared. "Project Colossus. Engineering notes. Gravity forging. Star core recycling. Matter expansion." Rel felt his lungs tighten. "These are impossible technologies." Lee nodded. "They were impossible until humans made them real." Another tremor hit. A massive crack formed in one of the data screens. The image flickered. Lee cursed under his breath. "We're running out of time." The forbidden truth. Suddenly, a voice called from behind them. "You shouldn't tell them everything yet, Lee." The aliens turned sharply. Another human entered, a woman with short black hair, wearing a heavy protective suit and carrying a data pad. "This is Chief Engineer Mara," Lee said quickly. She was part of the original rebuild team. Mara looked at the aliens with sharp, serious eyes. "They deserve to know," she said. "If the world collapses again, they will be the ones who suffer most." Rel stepped forward. "Then please tell us the full truth." Mara sighed and tapped her datapad. A new hologram filled the room. It showed humans working inside the mega engine room and being badly injured. Explosions. Fire. Entire platforms collapsing. Workers sacrificing themselves to activate stabilizers. Rel's breath caught. "So many died." Mara nodded. "Building this world cost human lives. Hundreds, maybe thousands. That was part of Project Colossus too, a cost we accepted to save your species." Rel felt a mix of disbelief, guilt, and deep respect. Mara continued, "But the most dangerous part was this." She tapped her pad again. The hologram showed the core fragment glowing too bright, forming a tear in space. A small wormhole. Rel froze. "A wormhole?" "The collapse created one." "Not a stable one," Mara said. "More like a wound in reality. Humans sealed it, barely, but the fragment is waking again. And if it reopens a tear..." Lee finished the sentence quietly. "The entire world will be ripped apart." The next step, another violent shake, made the chamber tilt. A pipe burst overhead. Steam filled the air. Mara shouted over the alarms. "We must reach the central control tower. It's the only place we can reboot the stabilizers." Rel felt his fear rising again. "Human, will this be enough to stop the collapse?" Lee looked at him with tired but determined eyes. "We don't know," he said honestly. "But if there is a way, humans will find it." Mara pointed to a sliding bridge. "Move. The tower is through there." As the group ran across the shaking floor, the world around them groaned like a wounded beast. The fragment was waking, and the real fight was just beginning. The sliding bridge shook as the group ran across it. Sparks burst from the ceiling. Steam hissed from broken pipes like angry serpents. Far below, glowing rivers of blue energy surged and crashed against the engine walls. Every tremor felt stronger than the last. Ambassador Rel struggled to keep his balance. The bridge swayed dangerously. "Human," he shouted. "If this world collapses, what happens to us?" Leon looked back. His voice was firm, steady, and full of urgency. "If we fail, no one survives. Not humans, not your people, not this world." Mara pushed a fallen beam aside with surprising strength. "Move faster. The core fragment is destabilizing everything." Another explosion echoed through the engine room. A shockwave of hot air slammed into them. Rel staggered, but Lee grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. "Stay close," Lee said. "Whatever happens, stay close." The group finally reached the end of the bridge and stepped into a tall chamber filled with trembling lights. A circular staircase wrapped around the walls, spiraling up toward a tower glowing with orange power. Rel felt the heat instantly. It was like standing inside the throat of a massive volcano. "What is this place?" he asked. Mara answered while she climbed urgently. "This is the stabilizer tower. It keeps gravity balanced. Without it, the world becomes unstable." Rel gasped. "Then why is it destabilizing now?" Lee spoke without slowing down. "Because the core fragment is waking up. The stabilizers were designed for it to stay dormant. And if it doesn't stay dormant?" Rel asked. Mara's voice was grim. "Then we fight a disaster we cannot fully control." The stabilizer tower. At the top of the stairs, a wide door slid open. Heat poured out like fire. Inside, the control chamber was a massive circular room with a glowing engine in the middle. Its rotating rings spun unevenly, emitting bursts of orange light. Panels sparked. Warning signs flashed everywhere. Gravity shift detected. Power flow unstable. Core locks failing. A group of human engineers worked around the engine, shouting commands, typing urgently, trying to stop the rising catastrophe. One spotted Lee and saluted weakly. "Ambassador, you made it!" "Status?" Lee shouted. "Bad." The engineer replied. "Stabilizers are losing control. The fragment's energy is spiking. If it keeps rising, the tower will shut down automatically." Mara cursed. "If the tower shuts down, we lose gravity control. The world tears itself apart." Rel felt his heart drop. "Human, is there truly no hope?" Lee shook his head quickly. "There's always hope. And humans always fight until the last breath." He turned to Mara. "Bring up the fragment readings." She tapped her datapad. A hologram displayed the core fragment, the glowing green sphere behind the sealed hatch. Energy levels rose on the graph, climbing faster and faster. Rel looked at the numbers. He didn't understand the human measurements, but he understood one thing. They were running out of time. The disaster returns. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the entire tower. The floor cracked. The engine sputtered. Screams echoed from technicians holding onto rails as the chamber tilted sideways. Rel felt his body lift slightly off the ground, as if gravity was flickering. Lee shouted, "Hold on! Gravity is destabilizing." Rel grabbed a metal railing. His feet floated for a moment before slamming back onto the floor as gravity snapped back violently. The aliens panicked. "We must evacuate. We must leave this world." Mara turned to them sharply. "If you leave now, you die. If you stay, you might live. Choose wisely." Rel swallowed hard. He looked around the room, at the shaking walls, at the sparks, at the humans fighting against an unstoppable disaster. He understood. Leaving was impossible. They had to trust the humans. The human plan. Lee moved quickly to a large console. Dozens of screens glowed red. He typed rapidly, calling out orders to the team. Redirect backup power. Engage the gravity brakes. Cool the turbine coils. But each command returned the same message. Failed, failed, failed. Mara approached him, breathless. "It's not enough. The fragment is too strong." Lee slammed his fist on the console. There must be something else. One young human engineer raised his hand nervously. There is one thing, but it's part of the old Project Colossus files. Lee and Mara turned toward him instantly. What thing? Lee demanded. The engineer swallowed. The emergency stabilizer, the manual reset. Mara froze. No, that option is too dangerous. It means someone has to enter the inner reactor chamber. Rel felt confused. What does that mean? Mara looked at him with sad eyes. It means someone must go into the reactor and reset it by hand. But it's overloaded. The radiation inside will kill anyone who enters. The aliens fell silent. Rel whispered, You cannot ask someone to sacrifice themselves for us. Lee looked at the trembling engine. We aren't asking. Humans have always known this day might come. He placed his hand on the console. This world was built with sacrifice. If another sacrifice saves it, then that is what we must do. Rel shook his head. No, humans already saved us once. We cannot let you die again. Mara raised a hand. It is not your choice. A growing tear in the sky. Before more could be said, a sudden explosion ripped through the tower. A massive screen burst into bright, violent light. The hologram of the fragment expanded suddenly, then twisted. Rel stared in horror. A dark crack formed across the hologram, then opened wider. A spatial tear. Mara shouted. It's opening again. The same disaster that destroyed the aliens' world long ago was returning. The engine room floor split open. Energy shot upward in a beam of green light. Humans shielded their eyes. Aliens screamed. The tower shook violently. Lee took a deep breath. It's happening. Rel grabbed him. Human, what now? Lee turned toward the inner reactor door. Now, he said, we do the impossible. The council chamber shook again as more tremors rippled through the floating city. The alarms cried out across the high windows, and the lights flickered in long, nervous pulses. But even with the growing danger, every eye stayed locked on the giant projection floating above the central table. The full human blueprint of planetary expansion. For the first time in their history, the Zerati elders were seeing the entire truth, and they were stunned, not afraid, just stunned. Elder Vero, whose feathers were normally smooth and polished, pressed his trembling hand against the table. This cannot be real. You're telling us humans stretched our entire world using a single formula. Commander Hayes nodded calmly. Not a single formula. A whole chain of them. And every one built to fit inside the laws of your universe. Elder Zhurin leaned closer, her voice soft. But no world, no civilization has ever done this. Hayes gave a small smile. Exactly. That is why humans did it. The chamber fell quiet for a moment, except for the distant rumble of the growth engines acting strangely under the dome. The strange instability was still growing. Everyone could feel it. Jorah pointed to the glowing blue map. This was never in our history records. We never knew this was possible. That's because you weren't supposed to use it this way. Hayes replied, Your ancestors only understood the surface of the math. Humans went deeper. We found a way to increase space inside space. Elder Vero blinked. You created more physical room? Layered room. Hayes corrected. Space inside space. Like taking a small building and fitting a city inside it without breaking any rules. The elders exchanged startled gazes. Hayes continued, his tone steady and simple. Humans saw something in your world that you didn't see. A pattern. A weakness. A door. You trusted us with your data, and we used it to make something greater. Greater for who? Elder Zhurin asked. Hayes didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly folded his arms behind his back and looked up at the projection. For both of us, he finally said, but we didn't think you would react the way you did. Jorah frowned. What reaction? Hayes turned to her. Fear. The room grew still again. Your leader saw humans doing the impossible, Hayes said, and instead of celebrating, they thought you would become dependent on us. So they hid the truth. They pretended you expanded your own world. Jorah's eyes widened. The elders were silent. Zhurin swallowed hard. So our entire civilization grew because of you? Hayes nodded once. And now, he added, the instability is happening because someone is trying to stop the process early. They cut the system halfway through its cycle. That's why the ground keeps shaking. The whole chamber began vibrating more violently. Proof he wasn't lying. Another alarm screamed. Extreme sector instability detected. Structural folding beginning. Hayes raised his voice. If the folding continues, parts of your world will collapse inward, not explode, shrink, vanish, gone forever. Elder Vero whispered, horrified. Who would do such a thing? Hayes exhaled slowly. Someone who doesn't want the truth uncovered. Someone who fears what humans can do. Jorah stepped closer to projection, her hands shaking. Then how do we stop it? Hayes walked to the center of the room. With one command, he changed a massive projection from the blueprint to a new display, an enormous tower machine deep beneath the planet's core. The stability engine, Hayes said, humans built it to support your expansion. It was never supposed to be touched. And now, Vero asked, now someone has broken into it. The image zoomed in on a hidden chamber inside the engine. There, a small figure was working near a glowing control pillar. Jorah gasped. Who is that? Hayes' voice turned dark. Admiral Threx. Eldershirn recoiled, but he is head of planetary safety. Hayes shook his head. He fears losing power. He believes if humanity helps your people grow, you will trust us more than your own leaders. So he decided to stop the system permanently. A stronger tremor slammed through the council hall. The floor cracked slightly beneath their feet. Jorah steadied herself. We don't have long. Hayes nodded. We have minutes, not hours. What do you need from us? Elder Vero asked. Hayes looked the elder straight in the eyes. You need to trust us again. Vero hesitated. His feathers trembled with fear and uncertainty, but he slowly nodded. Hayes activated his wrist unit. A glowing human interface expanded in front of him. We're going down to the core, he said firmly. Jorah, you're with me. Elders, stay here and keep the council broadcast active. The citizens need to know the truth. No more lies. Eldershirn whispered. If you fail, Hayes didn't turn around. We won't. Jorah followed him as the exit door slid open. Behind them, the chamber was still shaking, alarms flashing red along every wall. But Hayes felt calm. He had seen humanity do impossible things. He had helped build a world inside a world. Stopping one frightened admiral? That was nothing compared to that. Hayes and Jorah stepped into the high-speed lift. The doors closed. The descent to the core had begun. The high-speed lift shot downward with such force that Jorah had to grip the rail with both hands. The glass around them blurred with streaks of blue light as the lift crossed layer after layer beneath the planet's inner shell. The deeper they went, the more the world trembled. Commander Hayes watched the readings calmly, but Jorah could see the tightness in his jaw and the way he kept checking the stability engine status. It was getting worse. When the lift finally slowed, a heavy metallic voice echoed. Core level reached. Extreme folding in progress. The doors opened. Jorah gasped. The chamber was enormous, like the inside of a glowing metal planet. Tall silver pillars stretched upward like gigantic trees, each one feeding blue energy streams into a single massive central tower. That tower, the stability engine, was the heart of their world. Without it, the expanded planet would collapse like a dying star. And at the base of the engine stood Admiral Threx. The Admiral turned when he heard the doors. His long, scale cloak shimmered in the light. His 4 eyes narrowed as he saw the 2 newcomers. So, Threx said softly, the humans sent their builder to stop me. Hayes stepped forward. Don't do this. You'll destroy your people. Threx lifted a small control rod, glowing with red energy. I will save them. Save them from you. Jorah felt her chest tighten. You think destroying half the world is saving us? Threx's voice rose sharply. You expanded our planet. You made us depend on your power. If humanity can grow worlds, then what can't they do? We will become pets. Tools. Decorations in your great empire. Hayes shook his head firmly. Humanity has no empire. We gave you strength, so you could stand beside us. not below us. Threx laughed bitterly. That is exactly what an empire builder would say. Before Hayes could reply, the engine roared. A violent rumble shook the entire chamber. Parts of the ceiling cracked, dropping pieces of metal and stone. Hayes raised his voice above the noise. Threx, the collapse has already begun. If we don't relock the engine cycle, everything, your cities, your forests, your oceans, will fold into nothing. Better nothing, Threx hissed, than slavery. He slammed the rod into a console. Red lightning shot across the engine surface. The entire chamber screamed with energy. Jorah cried out, covering her ears as the sound vibrated through her bones. Hayes rushed forward and grabbed the Admiral's wrist. The two men struggled as raw power surged to the floor beneath them. Threx twisted, tried to break free. You cannot stop me, human. Hayes growled, I don't need to stop you. I just need to stabilize the engine. With a sudden move, he knocked the control rod from Threx's hand. It clattered across the metal floor. Threx lunged for it, but Jorah stepped in front of him. No more lies, she said, trembling but brave. No more fear. Threx snarled and rushed at her, but Hayes grabbed the Admiral's collar and pulled him back. They fell hard, rolling across the platform. Jorah ran for the rod, but at that moment, the engine pulsed again, an enormous burst of energy that nearly threw her off her feet. Hayes saw her stumble. Jorah, get to the override panel, he shouted. The floor was shaking so badly now that every step felt like running on waves. Jorah forced her legs forward and reached the glowing control pillar. She slammed her hand onto the panel. Commander, what do I do? Hayes yelled while wrestling Threx. Blue icons. Only the blue ones. They reconnect the cycle. Jorah pressed the first glowing icon. A loud hum filled the chamber. She pressed another. The hum grew deeper. She pressed a third. Light surged around the engine like a massive heartbeat, trying to restart. Hayes punched Threx in the jaw, knocking him unconscious. Jorah, now! The core key. She looked at the final icon, a huge blue circle pulsing weakly. Her hands were shaking. The floor was splitting behind her. If she made a mistake, the entire world might collapse. She pressed it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a shockwave of calm spread across the chamber. The shaking stopped. The light of the engine shifted from angry red to steady blue. The folding field shrank, then stabilized. Hayes exhaled slowly. You did it! Jorah dropped to her knees, letting the relief wash over her. The planet was safe. They stood quietly for a moment, listening to the steady thrum of the now stable engine. Hayes finally spoke. I've seen humans build many things, but this world is worth more than any starship or station we ever made. Jorah smiled weakly. Because you built it with us? Hayes shook his head. Because you believed in us before your leaders feared us. A soft tone sounded from Hayes's wrist unit. It was Elderjurin's voice. Hayes? Jorah? The tremors are gone. Citizens can stand again. Tell us, did you succeed? Hayes pressed the comm. It's over. The world is stable. A long breath of relief came over the channel. Then Elder Vero said, the truth will be told. No more hiding. No more fear. Our people deserve to know who helped us. Hayes smiled. Good. It's time they knew. Jorah looked at the giant engine one last time. What now? Hayes replied calmly. Now? We go home. But your world will remain bigger than it ever was. And the galaxy will finally understand. He placed a hand on the glowing pillar. Why humans build the impossible. The lift doors opened behind them. Together, Hayes and Jorah stepped inside, leaving the shining heart of the planet humming steadily. Strong, stable, and more enormous than any alien world had ever been. The world inside the world. The world the humans made massive. The world saved.